All right. What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping It Real with T and L. Today we are here with Coach Tim Hill of CrossFit San Ramon. We're going to be talking about how improper movement mechanics lead to muscle dysfunction and joint pain. Coach Tim is an expert when it comes to obviously helping people work out at their peak. So he's going to be shedding some light coming from his years of experience, but that's not all. We're also going to be diving into RFK Jr. Coach Sloan.
All right. So yes, I'm really excited about the movement mechanics because we have a lot of people that are like, oh, my knee hurts. It's not even the knee, but we'll get into that. So a day after we filmed last week, Robert Kennedy Jr. was confirmed. And it's important that we have this conversation because the quickest way to sum up what it's about is when he was talking to everyone and he said, look, there are no Republican and there are no Democrat children. This is about the health of the youth, right? Like Tim's 60, I'm 47, you're 37, correct? We can be knowing, right? And there's a lot of things that we suffer from and things that we have to deal with for decades that we don't want our children to have to continue to do and their children and great-grandchildren going forward. So it's really about cleaning up the food. It's about transparency and what is in the vaccines that some of you just are like devastated about losing, even though they're not going anywhere, right? It's informed consent. That's what it's about. It's also about the big pharmaceuticals not being protected so that if you do get sick, totally injured, or die from the vaccine, there's no recourse for the family, right? So you, pardon me, saw a lot of young people speaking to Congress where their daughter had gotten the COVID-19 vax or their son, and they're completely in wheelchair. They can't move. Their motor functions are not, like they're dying or they're dead, and they're like, oh, it's okay. Like we did a 5-minute trial and rushed it out there, so it's good. So we're not going to play this game anymore. We're going to make health in this country the most important thing, because at the end of the day, like if there's not enough people to be firemen, cops, military, teachers, because no one's healthy enough to do anything, what are we doing, right? And that's why I love everything about him. It's, he's a Kennedy, so through and through, he's the OG Democrat, and then he kind of went independent, and then he saw an opportunity to come on with Trump to actually do something for the people that he's been advocating for like 25 years, censored big time too. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. I just wanted to bring that up. So
absolutely. No, absolutely. And this is a very big deal to me because I like RFK and what he's all about, which is literally trying to get people back on the right track when it comes to their health. We've been sold lies. And they put chemicals in the food, they put chemicals in our body, and it's been this slow, constant drip of trying to basically kill us slowly or get us onto meds that we need to basically live. And this is a way for us to finally get out of that cycle. And not only that, this is coming from obviously people who don't usually consume processed food. So I obviously know the difference and how it makes me feel and the problems that it caused me. And if there was somebody when I was a kid who was willing to actually stop some of these things, like I was a kid who was getting fed Pop-Tarts and cereal. I wish somebody would have told my mom better. I wish that somebody would have been looking out for my health because nobody was then. And now there's someone who genuinely cares and wants people to get back on track, wants to rid us of chronic disease, lower the obesity rate in this country. Anybody who has a problem with that, you obviously have a problem with me as well, because I know the damage that caused because I lived it. So
yeah,
that's my
purpose. Is real. Like we put more money into the healthcare system and research for cancer and chronic disease and obesity, and we're the least healthy we've ever been as a society. So the healthcare system works so well, you can barely find a healthy person. That's the quote. That's certainly clients. So, I mean, we work really hard to get people healthy. I have people in the medical profession that are members at the gym that ask me how to help their patients because they know that this Band-Aid approach of like, hey, I have a thyroid problem. Take, Synthroid, take Armour Thyroid. Okay, well, is that fixing my thyroid? No, but it'll do the work of your thyroid until it dies off. Like what? How are we not fixing things that other parts of the world fix that I fix? I'm not an MD. like I can do it. So we know that it's possible because we have dozens of people that I've worked with that all have the same outcome, whether it's mental health, chronic illness, chronic disease. I love the autoimmune diseases because they're so easy to fix. And that sounds so counterintuitive when I say it out loud and it sounds outlandish. But if you could walk a day in my shoes, you'd be like, wow, if they put in the work, they come out of it better than they were before. And one more thing I want to bring up, because I will share this from the heart. So we're not anti-vaxxers. Like all the way up until the COVID vaccine, because I knew enough people who worked at Allergan Labs to know that I would never put that in my body. And I never will. No one in my family was going to have that. And we're the better for it because no one regrets not taking it. Right. Because then after the years go by, you can still get it. You can still spread it. Oh, it would have been worse if I didn't have it, really, because it feels better never getting sick or having not had it. So kind of feeling like winning on that one. But I did give my daughter the HPV shot. Now, Gardasil is under huge scrutiny and problems for the long-term side effects of a shot that promised to not let your kid get human papillomavirus. And it's so funny because when I remember talking to Tim about this, okay, and I was like, I don't know, like, why? She's like 11. Why are we worried about an STD on my 11-year-old? She's not going to Epstein Island. Like, what are we worried about right now? But we have so much cancer in my family. They start laundry listing all the cancers it helps prevent. And I'm a sucker because she's my only child. And my mom had bladder cancer. My great grandpa and all 7 of his brothers died of colon cancer. My grandma had skin cancer. My brothers had skin cancer. My aunts had skin. And I'm just like, okay, then let's do it. And Tim and I talked and we're like, it's okay. And now I'm like, is it? Like, what's it going to be like when she tries to have kids? Because sterility is a huge problem with that. And now we see people in mass going against, is it Merrick that created Gardasil? I can't remember off the top of my head. Because all I do is sit every night and regret doing that. And I can't take it back. You can't unvaccinate your kids. You just can't. So for me, I appreciate informed consent because had I really had time to know what was happening, I would not have given an 11-year-old a freaking vaccine for STDs. She's 11. She's playing with Barbies, not going on dates. But you just fall prey to that. Like they push it so hard because the kickbacks that they make off of getting the shots into people is pretty astronomical. So that's, yeah, I really hope that
knew where to go with emotions.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, take the fucking politics out of healthcare. You guys got to like get it together on both sides. Think of your children, think of yourself, think of anyone that has any of the basic autoimmune diseases, and know that other countries say the driving force of autoimmune diseases is inflammation from all of the chemicals and heavy metals and crap in the vaccines we're just taking without even giving it a second thought. And if you're that worried about measles, mumps, and rubella, when you take the shot, you're guarded from it. So it doesn't matter if I have it or not. We're missing the common sense has left the building. And I think people, they get so wrapped up in things or so in love with the side of an argument that they're missing the whole point.
Exactly.
Like if it gives you a hedge of protection, then what are you worried about?
Not only that, it's like the other thing is like this, like don't put your who it's coming from on it.
Yeah.
Let's just picture it's 2 freaking kids who you've never met telling you their freaking show and tell science story.
Yeah.
Of this is what I know and this is what I know. You should be able to hear both and make an informed choice of, oh wow,
yeah,
that's probably what I should probably be concerned about, or maybe I shouldn't be concerned about. Like this is like you said, common sense has left the building. That's what the issue is, that people are allowing their emotional ties to a certain party who, let's be honest, they're not coming to save you.
Yeah.
Neither side. No one's coming to save you. It's on you.
Yeah.
But the whole entire point is we still need to be the one making the choice. And like you said, having that informed consent is going to help with that.
Yeah.
But doing the research on your own and actually getting involved and knowing, okay, what are these chemicals or what am I putting in my body? Yes, we should know those kind of things.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that that gets missed a lot of times with this whole thing is that, we need to follow the science. And the science tells us benefits of something. And a lot of the science is not that's telling us the benefits was paid for. So those can be questionable too. But not only the science of benefits, but do we not hear more about the science of the negative effects? And so nobody's following the science of the negative effects as they're pushing these things out down to, the where we really see the problems developing, and it's just like,
Yeah.
We know that, we see some of the negative effects, and we know some people, you had some negative effects due to one of those, right?
Ooh,
So
I talked about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And those are things that are,
I'll definitely talk about it.
yeah, these are things that, we don't hear about both sides of the science. And this is the
Yeah.
problem, is that it's a one-sided thing. And so
I'll be honest with you guys. I'm not going to go into the detail. We'll probably save the full story for another episode. What Tim is referencing to is when COVID-19 first happened in 2020, I had gotten one COVID shot. I'd gotten one out the gate. It was something that our department had said we had to do it. I got one shot. It only took me 2 weeks until I started growing a cyst out the side of my salivary gland, and it got to about the size of a softball. So you mean to tell me that just happened randomly? After my whole entire life, I've never had any issues. Perfect health. I work out. I train every day. I get one shot. 2 weeks later, there's a softball growing out of my face, and it's so funny because I had to get it removed twice because the first time they took out the cyst, but they failed to realize that what was damaged or what the shot had messed up was the whole entire salivary gland. So then I grew another one back, even bigger, which got removed a second time. And if there's anyone who's like, well, why don't you ever talk? Or why isn't this posted? One, because I don't post the things that I had to deal with that because I don't want anyone to see me as a victim, because I'm not. I made it out. But not only that, it's because at the time I had a different mindset towards this and I wasn't trying to cause a fuss. But now I'm not going to be quiet about it. I literally, and you could, if you don't like me or you have something to say, I don't care. I grew a cyst, and until you've grown two out the side of your face, you don't tell me that the shot's safe.
Yeah.
It's simple. And that's me. That's the experience that I had. Two cysts the size of softballs out of my face.
You're not alone. I mean, I think the beauty of what's happening now is when we labeled everything disinformation or misinformation that was on the opposite of the political party running the country, then you don't get both sides to the story. They don't talk about the VAERS reports, the COVID vaccine side effects. There's 8 pages of documented side effects that we've had since 2021. They've known about this. They keep getting in trouble for it. This is not like this conspiracy theory. We're not trying to convince you there's aliens. If you took a moment to just turn off Netflix and go, you can access all of this. You can come to our office and you can look at the 8 pages of side effects from, cyst to the myocarditis to dying suddenly. Remember when this was another shocking moment for me. We're kind of going off here, but I remember when Ashley was an infant and everyone talked about SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. And I never believed that vaccines cause any problems because I was just hook, line, and sinker. We do it. It saves her. Oh my God, whooping cough. Oh my God, RSV, which was only for infants back then. Whole other episode on that. And I would sleep in the white recliner holding her up so that if I felt her stop breathing, that I could save her because I thought it was just this random thing. Until COVID, they call it SAD, sudden adult death syndrome. And you got to see the report of the amount of people that died suddenly within like the 48-hour mark of their vaccine or booster. It's wild. And then that's when I started getting it. I was like, oh no, I can't take back the 15 years back then of stuff I've put in my kid. Like, holy crap. And it was that sad. This is bullshit. Holy crap. I know 3 moms that were at the elementary school with my daughter that just died suddenly in their sleep. Normal people, no pre-existing conditions. And you're just like, okay. And how do we know 3 people in San Ramon?
Where they'll start to develop a little bit of pain at the inside of the knee is one of the common ones. And that will typically be they'll typically be accompanied by something in the VMO, vastus medialis, which is on the inside above above the knee, so the inside of the leg above the knee there, and that will oftentimes be attached to that. And so that's doing two things. Once that muscle tightens up, one is it's closing up the joint space, it's pulling too hard on that, and the other thing is it's not allowing the joint to flex without increasing that tension as it goes through the range of motion. So we're getting that pressure there. But then also, as we think back to the hook, so that tendon is being pulled on too hard. So we'll see, some tendinopathy start to develop in there, some tendon pain develop. And that's something that generally by looking at our mechanics again, so how the ankle is set up and how the knee's set up, how the hip's set up, then we're changing that so that the knee is functioning in a better alignment. And one of the things that I like to come back to that it was really brought clear to me by my running coach, Dr. Nicholas Romanoff, was that good mechanics heal us and poor mechanics cause a breakdown.
Whoa, so one more time.
So good mechanics will heal us and poor mechanics will cause us to break down. And so if we're dealing with joint pain, one of the first things we have to address is those joint mechanics. If we're out of position, it doesn't matter how many times you fix it, it's going to come back if you keep doing the same thing, right? You can't, it's kind of the old adage I like to use. If I'm banging my head on the wall and it starts to bleed, I'm not just going to put a pillow on my head and keep banging it into the wall, right? And so I need to change something about the way I'm doing things in order to stop the pain. Yeah, and so and that could be, I do throw on the knee brace and keep going in the same position and just as heavy as I was instead of backing up, fixing the problem. And the thing that we look at, is if you look at a lot of the great athletes that have gone back and changed their game, I know Tiger Woods went through at one point where he took a year and was willing to go backwards in order to fix something in his golf swing to improve. Most of us are too afraid to back up and lose a little bit of progress in order to make big progress down the road. And it's something that's, it doesn't make a lot of sense other than it's hard on the pride to back up for a minute and do that. And so, and it's basically our pride that keeps us in trouble a lot of times when we get into these things. And so it's kind of the old check your ego at the door. Let's do what makes you better, not do what makes me look the best today, but do what actually makes me better.
It really works.
Oh, absolutely.
Like when I basically had a few years of not really working out, just trying to keep the gym open during COVID, right? Like I had to start over and my no brace, no knee wraps, no back wrap, nothing. I've come back, check my ego at the door, no pride, just go in and do it right. Fix the knees keep collapsing in. Let's get the glutes tight. Do all the things I need to do. And now by my 40th birthday, I'll have PR'd every single lift that we do in CrossFit. I have one disc left in my lower back, so I'm like the most crippled person, slamming weights around consistently because I always do it right. And Sunday we came back later because we deep cleaned the gym and I was going to work out. And I start squatting and it's like that nail in the kneecap. My body was just exhausted because I would have been day 9 in a row. I think I hadn't realized it, right? And I was like, nope, today's the day for some mobility and some taking care of myself and maybe some walking. You did the right thing. And then, Monday can work out, Tuesday barbell, crushing it, PR. Let's go. And so, like you said, but you got to get out of that mindset of, well, everyone's going to see me on the leaderboard, or. Yeah.
And you have to understand, the nail in the kneecap, it was something caused the nail in the kneecap. It wasn't random, right? So there was a loss of position, most likely somewhere in the mechanics during the previous days that brought you back to having an older issue on that. And so, and what's one of the things, our old aches and pains that we've had from past injuries and, living a hard life. I look at those, they're like trolls under the bridge. They're waiting for you to make a mistake. And so those we have to keep a closer eye on. It's just it's as soon as it sees you, turn your back, it's going to take you down. And so those are the things. Yeah, and that's, the trolls are mean. And so, so we always have to pay attention, once we've had especially any kind of significant injury, then we have to be much more diligent at making sure our mechanics around that injury are just that much better. And so at something where the cost is too high. So if we look at a cost benefit, as I'm going into exercise, if I'm looking at cost benefit, it's the cost is too high, the benefit's too low once I start working, especially into pain. If I've got pain, the benefits are going down, the cost is going up. And so what do I need to do? I need to change the mechanics. Usually changing the mechanics means that means I'm in a different position. So I've strengthened myself into position X. I need to be in position Y. I'm not going to be as strong in position Y because I've been training position X, right? And so I need to back up in order to allow myself to learn position Y. And this is something where people, again, the ego keeps us from being able to move in that direction the way that we should.
Awesome. So guys, next question. This will probably wrap us up, and we're just going to get some practical tips from Tim. One of the things that you had helped me with recently, you gave me some advice on running and how there were some minor things that I didn't know that I was doing incorrect. One of them was I was trying to create this long stride, and you were telling me that's an error right there. And so you've helped me with some minor things. So let's just say, what practical tips would you give somebody at home right now who, let's say, any running advice that you could give them right now that they could add into their daily regimen and improve their performance and also make sure they're doing it properly so they're not hurting and healing themselves? What would those running tips be? And let me say, a lot of you guys don't know that Tim is one of the few certified pose running coaches in Northern California. So you're not hearing from someone who's just talking out of his head. This is actual expert knowledge. So let's kind of give these people some of that value.
Yeah. And so as far as the pose method of running that I learned, it is something where I was in my 40s. I learned the pose method of running, and I was running much faster and with much less pain than I was in college and cross country. And so it's something that, the mechanics not only make us faster, but they also pull us out of pain. The first thing that is typically going wrong with running, where people end up having injuries and that type of thing, is overstriding. So if I look at overstriding, what does that mean? I'm reaching out and landing with my foot out in front of my body. So now all of my body weight slamming into this leg that's out in front of me. So I've got this thing out in front of me. Imagine running across the field with a sharp stick in front of your belly there and just slamming that down into the grass, and how that's going to feel. If you stick that sharp end into the grass, the other end's going to punch you in the gut really hard. You're doing this with your leg all day long as you're out there running if you're landing out front. And so this is causing foot stress, ankle stress, knee stress, hip stress, lower back stress. And so we can see injuries all up along that chain as we start landing out in front. And so as you're looking at landing out front, that's going to be a heel strike landing when we get out front, right? So this is kind of one of the common things with running, is to reach out and heel strike. So as we go into looking at bringing that foot back underneath, what happens if we look at running? There is the forward lean. If you think of like a Segway, as it leans forward, the wheels keep up with you. And so your forward lean can actually measure how fast you're going if you were to be able to measure that accurately. And so as we're looking at that forward lean, it's just supporting that forward lean. So we just need to get the feet off the ground to support that forward lean. As we're doing that, if the foot falls directly underneath us, it's not going to decelerate us. So we think of deceleration force is also that force that's pushing back up through the body that's going to create those injuries, right? And so the further out in front I land, the more deceleration force is coming back through that leg to me. Okay. So this is
the things going on.
Yeah. So you got
stride.
Yeah. So as you get that long stride going, that starts to break that down. And so, but if I'm landing underneath me, I immediately start pivot over the top of that leg. And so the closer it falls underneath the body, then the faster I pivot over the leg and the less deceleration force that I have. And so that also plays into less ground time. And so you'll see the more skilled runners have less ground time, which also reduces that force. The thing about landing underneath the body is landing underneath the body. It's not so much about whether or not, should I be landing on my ball of my foot? Should I be landing on the heel? When you're landing under the body, it doesn't make sense to land on the heel just because of the position of the leg at that point. So now I'm landing on the ball of the foot. And that also gives me, if you look at the flexion of the foot, the ankle, the knee, the hip, all catching that landing, I've got so much more shock absorption than you could possibly put in the thickest Hoka out there, so I can get a shoe with this much stack on it, and it's not going to give me as much cushioning as my own body if I position my body correctly. And so these are the things where, we're going about it in the wrong way, and this is the thing. I bought the first pair of Nike air-soled shoes when I was about, I think I was 13 years old or something like that. Spent $110 of my own money back in the 70s, and
it's a lot of money
within, this was important.
And it's passed with Lou Gehrig's disease. How many people do you know in your lifetime with ALS? How do we know it? It's wild. But in any event, it should be a moment for you to be uncomfortable hearing it, and then go research yourself, right? Because the science is broken. We know the Broken Science Initiative, but we also know how to use discernment to get through studies that are truthful, because they can be replicated, they can be duplicated. We can look at outcomes. We can do these different things, right? P-values, no place in medicine. Let's get past that and just look at the sheer numbers that have been reported in VAERS reports that they never talk about. They had the ticker for everyone that died of COVID, but never the count of the ones that were directly from the shot. And then they rolled back tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of deaths from COVID, because if you died in a car wreck and they swabbed you and you had COVID, it was marked as COVID. And that happened in all 50 states. This is not even like open for debate. Just go grab it from the states that got in trouble and the hospitals that got in trouble. And yeah, it's crazy. So I think that we are entering a time that will make a lot of us uncomfortable, because we will have regrets of what we've put in our bodies and our children's bodies. We should rejoice that things that are FDA approved, that are sprayed on our crops, like glyphosate, that are giving people cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Livermore lawsuit, husband and wife spraying it in a hazmat suit, still got the cancer, sued Monsanto, won millions. That was a huge deal, right? And now we have a health department that's not in bed with Monsanto. Like, we have people, the NIH is not going to be married to, there's no Fauci being married to the woman who runs the NIH that he found. Like, you can't have that. I can't be a lawyer and Tim's done something bad in our business and I'm defending him and lying for him because he's my husband. Like, you have to have that separation. And now we have transparency and that separation. And whether you want to be grateful for it or not, you'll be thankful when you're not dying of cancer and you're not eating foods that make you sick and fat and unhealthy and diabetic and give you mental health issues because it gets past the blood-brain barrier. And these are the things we have to talk about and be excited about, because even if you're not a parent, just look around at your friends' kids and be like, I love them. I hope that they have a very nice, healthy life and aren't sterile if they want to have kids someday, right? So these are the things we can look forward to in the next, it'll be well beyond 4 years. So it'll be wonderful for our health. Like, this is your life. You cannot buy your health. You could be Elon Musk with $400 billion and he cannot buy health. You cannot buy it. You could pay someone to cook healthy food for you and hope that it's sourced correctly. But if it's still FDA approved crap on your food, you're still going to get sick. And it catches up. No one's impervious to this. No one is above. Like, nobody is like godlike and be like, oh, it's cool. I can drink Roundup weed killer all day and be fine. No. So then stop eating wheat and grains and stuff with it sprayed on it, because that's why I was sick.
And don't forget, it's not just sprayed on it, but they genetically modify the wheat so that it goes in it.
Yeah.
And so it's in the seeds. And so these are some of the problems where it's just like, it's hard to escape.
It is.
So that's,
yeah.
It is hard to escape. And it's almost, I don't want to tell you guys out there that it is a preconceived trap that you need to find your way out of. But I hope you guys do. We obviously did.
Yeah.
So there's the next thing.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that really looking forward to, that transparency in the food and the food supply and the water supply, for ever since I've gotten into the fitness industry and, almost 20 years ago, learning about, where the fluoride in water comes from. It's an industrial waste product and how it's applied to the water, what that does to the bones and everything in the body. It's like there's a lot of if you look into it, it doesn't make any sense. It's just like, okay, this is something that's very hard to get out of the water. Your average around the mill filter doesn't take it out. So that means we're stuck with it because, they're putting it in our water supply. It's very difficult to get it out. I mean, you can do it with, things like reverse osmosis. I understand will take all of it out, but then you've also stripped all of the minerals and everything out of the water that, or the things we need in it. So it's kind of a, we're really kind of, putting ourselves into a disadvantage right away just with some of these things. And then, the way that they treat the food and everything. It's just, I'm excited to see, that coming to a point where we're going to take a serious look at it and have, new science coming in to check and verify that, okay, this is true, this is not true, and how does that affect our choices? Does it make it so that we, will have a better choice where maybe, that's not put in the water anymore, as long as that science verifies that, hey, there's some problems with that. Why should we, be forced into having that, and it's nice to know that we actually have advocates to go in and check and see, what is safe, what isn't safe, and all of that. So I think that's okay.
Like someone really caring about you and your health.
Yeah.
That's not true. Like at the very basis, someone is going to bat for you and your family who doesn't know you from Adam, like he doesn't know you, but he cares enough, has seen enough, has watched health decline in his family, like knows that what it says, the French fries at McDonald's, 3 ingredients, the potato, the beef tallow, and salt. And now there's like, I can't even pronounce it. I'm like, I'm not say that. It's crap, seed oils, crap, right? So someone actually cares about you and you're angry.
Doesn't make sense to me.
You should care. If you cared about you as much as he cared about your health, you would have a whole different life.
You absolutely would.
I mean, right? Like, could you imagine like waking up every day and being like, my body's a temple. Everything I put in builds my health or tears it down. And today I'm going to nourish it. I'm going to work out. I'm going to meditate. Abundance comes to me and through me. I'm going to put that out into the world and help people. Could you imagine if that was like the mindset of people? That would be a whole different, I can't imagine a world that amazing.
It wouldn't even be this world.
It would not be.
It couldn't exist in this realm. It'd be too good.
It's crazy. But yeah, so hopefully people can calm down, take the politics out of health, and like be excited for just seeing the truth in all things while still getting to make the decisions that they want. You can have 75,000 vaccines. You can have mine. We're not taking shit away. Like we're really not, And
that's what I'm saying. It's like that's what I completely love. It's like no one is saying that you still can't be fat and lazy. Most people have that down, and he's not stopping you from having that stuff. But at least he's letting people know this is the truth. This is what good health is. If you still want the bad health, it's available to you. Believe me, you guys can have it. Like it's like you said, and that's the other thing that I love, that someone cares enough to actually try to help out the general mass. Because here's the truth. Most of us here are very, very disciplined. I don't need someone to tell me what to eat because I know, but most people aren't disciplined. They don't have any of that. So most Americans need that guidance. You need someone who cares enough because you don't care enough to watch it yourself. So you should thank God that there's someone who actually wants to help you out.
Yeah.
Because as it was left to your own devices for the past, 4 years, and everyone who comes up to me and said, can you help me lose my COVID weight? You could literally see what the other side had a plan for.
Yeah. Facts. Speaking of caring about you, we do care about everything structurally, health-wise, emotional, all of that. And so Tim's going to go over some great body mechanic stuff, right? Because we know like knee pain, unless you've torn something and surgery bound, like it's generally coming from somewhere else. And Tim is like this magician who's like, hey, I saw you lifting your left toe from across the room in that deadlift, and we're going to work on the piriformis and then bring it. Listen to me. Glasses. Like, he's so smart. This guy's so smart. I'm not just saying that because I'm his wife and I'm defending him either. When I started here, 100 pounds overweight and crippled after a back surgery, I was that person that hurt all the time and was scared of everything. So let's do it. Let's break it down, Tim.
I can attest. So just because we've been getting so deep into our other topic, we're going to dive right in just to get a nice clean slate. So Tim, question one: movements and movement mistakes and dysfunction. So let's just start. How do basic errors in movement mechanics usually lead to joint pain and muscle dysfunction?
Okay, first I think the best way to start this off is just kind of throw out a little definition. So when I'm talking about movement, I'm talking about the mechanics in the movement. I'm talking about joint positions and how the relationship of one bone is to the other. So we're talking about actual positions when I'm talking mechanics. When I look to the flow between the positions of mechanics, I'm talking more technique. And so that's going to be more the flow and the movement there. So as we look at the mechanics, as we go into the joint mechanics, if there's different rotations or flexion and extension into that joint, if it gets into a point where there's stress, where it's compressing one side of the joint, for example, as it's going through those movements, now I'm going to start to see some more like wear and tear in the joint. The other thing I'm going to get is typically you're going to have if there's pain developing, it's going to develop a lot of times in the connective tissue near the joint. And so we're looking at where the muscle actually attaches to the bone on there, so through the tendons, that type of thing. So you're going to see, tendinopathy, or what was previously called tendonitis. And so with the development of this, one of the things that you'll see is that the joint mechanics, and so how we shape the joints during our movement, is going to eventually, if it's out of alignment, will start to cause stress in the muscle. The muscle will start to kind of bind up, and that's going to put it puts too much tension into the connective tissue, or where that tendon is there. So we're going to get issues in the tendon, or where the tendon attaches to the bone. And so through that, what we see is that I like to think of it as if there's a winch pulling on a hook and the hook is bending, I can't go and try to rescue the hook. I'm gonna take tension off the cable. And so the cable would be the muscle, the hook is the tendon, right? The tendon's hooking to the bone, right? And so now that hook is bending, and so we're starting to feel pain in that tendon. We're going to come back to the muscle. So basically what that means is joint pain, generally I'm going to look up downstream, to work on that. So upstream would mean if I've got a problem in the knee, I'm going to look up to the quad. If it's back of the knee, I'm going to look up to the hamstring, down to the calf. And so basically looking above and below the problem would be the first place you search. But as we get into that, taking care of the muscle dysfunction is part of the problem, but the bigger problem is the mechanics that drove the problem in the first place.
Love it. I love that. Yeah. I was going to say just one more thing. So I completely love that. Now let's say that I'm having some elbow pain. Does the same rule apply? Would I work down toward the forearm or up toward the bicep if I'm having some kind of tightness on the outer elbow area, or some of these tight spots?
Yes, yeah. So absolutely. So if you're looking at any of the joints, you're getting pain in the outside of the elbow. So if you're outside or inside, so if you're getting tennis or golf elbow, they're commonly called in there, depending on where it is in the elbow. And so if you're working with that, again, following from the pain, follow the muscle down. And so we're following the chain of evidence, right? So the evidence is saying this hurts, I'm following that down, and then oftentimes what you're going to find is you're going to find a place in the muscle that either has a lump in it, and it's sore, probably a little bit of both. And so we can work on that muscle and kind of get that muscle to calm down through body work, so you can think of massage, a Theragun, lacrosse ball, any, gua sha. There's 100 different ways to work on it, but we're looking for something that softens that knot and loosens that up. And so those are some of the things that we look to kind of get to those things. But yeah, we look upstream, downstream from that, and to get into some of those problems. And then, of course, we have to address, oftentimes those problems are accompanied by a weakness in some of the muscles around that lead to that imbalance as well.
Yeah. So you've been coaching since like the 70s. What are the top 3 complaints that you hear that are actually not the joint itself, but the dysfunction that you're talking about around it? What are the top 3?
that's hard to say, but I'd say probably the one that's most common that I see, like in an environment like we're in here, where people are squatting with substantial weights, stuff like that, will get some issue me, because I was an athlete, did a lot of running, and so I immediately started feeling how I could extend my stride without pain. Um, Down the road 4 or 5 months, my knees were both the size of cantaloupes, and so they swelled up, and it was something where the doctors were saying, well, by the time I got in there, the swelling had gone down, and they said, we'll go out and run again. If it swells up again, we'll do surgery. So I immediately then started working on some of the joint mechanics and rehab stuff that I work with people in here on now, and was able to manage that and not have surgeries, and went on to do things like run ultra marathons and doing adventure races where I'd run 8-9 hours at a time, maybe 50-ish miles, something like that. So things that were out there that without pain, and so those are things that you just like felt that too.
So there was honestly so much to unpack there, but number one, the main thing that I like is that huge tip, because that could help so many people. Because I was somebody who was a big long strider, and I thought that was the way to go. Even coaches who I was under in high school were like, "Oh, just telling our wide receivers, hey, open up that stride, open up that stride." That's a common thing, and not knowing all the problems. And then the other thing that I want to pack is a 13-year-old Tim doing his own rehab. He's the only person who I know with a straight face. Only Tim. He's like, okay.
No doubt.
Doctor,
we did not question at all. We did not need empirical proof, because we knew that he did that.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
I already know Tim. I was reading coaches' manuals back then. Instead of not reading the athlete manual, I was reading a coach's manual when I was at that age. So
that's what I know. Like if Tim says I put myself through my own rehab program and pulled my knees at 13, that's the only person I know it's true. I don't have to question it once. That's amazing.
No disinformation in that one.
Oh, that's classic.
Classic.
Here, I completely love this. So, Tim, before we let you go, you've already been on the hot seat, but there was a couple questions that I didn't get to throw at you, so I'm going to put you on the hot seat. I'm not going to keep you here, though.
Okay.
These are going to be quick ones. So, the first one, it's a classic.
No, I'm
I like it.
Oh,
But
no.
one of the ones that we got to ask Jack and Mike that we'd like to ask you is, if there's any person dead or alive you could sit with and ask anything you want, ask them all the questions, who would you want to sit down and talk with? And it doesn't have to be someone famous. It could be a family member. Mike's was a family member.
Yeah. So that's a great question, and I think that one of the ones that always comes to my mind is Ben Franklin, actually, and just because of his kind of his 13-step process of self-improvement was so fascinating, and all of the things of course that he was able to accomplish, but he was able to accomplish it because of the discipline and the way that he organized his life. And so to kind of get a little bit better understanding, and just to talk to him about how that.
I love that.
That's good.
I love it. All right. Next thing. So, Tim, a lot of people, they don't really know you are, to all of us, super, super healthy. At some point, I'm sure that you probably had normal taste buds. Back in your older time, or back in the day, what was your favorite go-to, like a snack / like something they had junk food, like Tim style junk food?
Yeah. So the Tim style junk food. So there's been a few periods that I've gone through where I have a horrible sweet tooth. Once you start it, I have a hell of a time stopping it. It's one of the biggest things where it's just like I get frustrated when people bring that around me. But I used to eat like a whole pack of donuts by myself. I'd buy the donuts and I'd go through the whole thing. I'd eat the whole pack. Like 6-pack of donuts or whatever, like the crappy ones. Yeah. So whatever, get the whole thing. Yeah, so that whatever it was. So I'd go through that at some times where it's just like I kind of let go. But one of the things I'd say that the thing that's kept me as healthy as I am is I keep coming back. I keep after a period of time I say no and I pull back from all of that and I get away from it. And I grew up in a house where my mom was cooking all the meals, and doing the best she could is to make everything healthy, and certainly now we have some understanding where, there's some things where, at times we were maybe a little bit higher on the carbohydrate than we should have been, but the food was all, sourced pretty well. And, we were eating, prior to glyphosate and all that stuff. So yeah, so it was good. I'm old enough. I got the get out of jail free card. I saw that stuff. So, and then by the time it started to get really thick, I started to understand it. So, since I was able to avoid a lot of it, but
stuff, Tim.
So yeah, then it's always coming back to eating meats, vegetables, and that being kind of the biggest
fitness in 100
the biggest thing that I keep coming back to over and over again. It's just like I'll go through these phases through life where I've gone off the rails, and then I get to a point where I realize, hey, this is not a good place, even before I really had the training to understand it. So
that's me. I don't want to say it, but as we say, straight is the path, narrow is the way. Sometimes that's how it's got to be.
Yeah, and
that leads you to where you want to go.
And there is one of the things too that might be good to understand is that as far as like one of the things that keeps me in check with those things is that you don't think about I've been an athlete all my life. People think I've never had an issue with my weight at all or anything like that, but I just have a smaller tolerance. Is where it's at, and so this is something. And it's funny because I was talking to my mom a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about how growing up, her clothes started to get tight, and she wouldn't allow herself to buy new clothes, so she shut down her volume of food. She just backed off on the volume and stayed that way, and she did that all the way through her life. She wouldn't buy a new wardrobe. When the clothes got tight, it's time to tighten up the diet. And I was talking the other day, that was several weeks ago. We traveled around to Italy and did some things last summer. And so we're eating a lot of foods that don't normally eat. And I came in, I put on one of my pairs of pants. It's like, damn, these are tight in the waist. And it's like, what the fuck am I going to do? Go buy another pair of pants? No. I'm not going to go buy another pair of pants. I didn't know where I got that from until weeks later. I was talking to my mom, but that was it. And so it's just like, it's just like, I have this thing where it's like, there's a certain level of acceptance, that I'll accept. And once I hit that level, then I go into my panic mode, right? I'm not going to go on beyond that, right? And so if it gets out of a certain range, it's like, okay, this is fucked up, Yeah. And so, but it's, it's the same thing that, people go through at different levels. We all have our tolerance point.
Oh yeah. No,
and that's the thing. And so when we have our tolerance point for how fit we are, and we have our tolerance point for how much pain we're going to take in that knee before we do something about it. We all have our tolerance level before we're going to actually take action. And I think one of the things is to narrow our tolerance, and that helps.
So my zero tolerance for both. Lori, I had an Italian with her zero tolerance for shit dialed in right now. See, everyone want to judge me.
There you go.
Short fuse, but look at me living the dream right now.
No tolerance. No, and I'll admit, Tim, what Tim's talking about is true, because some of us, I was one of them where my tolerance button, it was either broken or malfunctioned, because I was going right up that path, and obviously
Yeah.
And I had hit the 400 pounds. And so that is someone who obviously wasn't using theirs properly, but obviously.
But you didn't even realize what's happening, because I've been there. You're like, all of a sudden, you're like, well, that escalated quickly. But it was like 4 or 5 years. But you don't even realize it, because Tim would sneak under the sheets at night when you were 4 or 5 to do hundreds of sit-ups and not get caught. Now, some people think, people talk about lizard people, the earth, and aliens. I'm like, he's a reptilian right here. Whole new, you know what? We should be careful, because the reptilian's going to get mad and shut down the podcast. But yeah, people are like, Tim is not human. I'm like, no, sometimes he is superhuman. But you sharing that the whole pants getting tight, which in all fairness was not after Italy, which was almost a year ago. It was when Ashley became the Italian queen and we were going out to Italian restaurants.
Yeah, it was Italian food.
It's all Italian food in Italy. Nobody gained weight. Pictures on the boat and bathing suits, nobody cared. You come back, you're like, how did that happen? And then you eat food here and you're like, oh, that's how that happened. Because our food is dirty, not for long, right? Let's go. So
yeah, and I would say that it does link back to that, because it linked to a breakdown in intolerance for food. So it was like, okay,
Oh,
that is good. That was good. I was able to eat that over there. I let things go a little bit. And so what's letting it go again? What's letting it go again? What's letting it go again until you hit your tolerance point?
yeah.
Right. And so you hit the tolerance point and you're like, okay, this is not it. And for some people, maybe it's when you step on the scale and you see 400 and it's like, that's not a number I like.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's like, hey, my waistband's too tight. That's a tolerance that I don't like, and so it's just that I think that as we look at it, it's like in the areas that pertain to our health is finding those tolerance zones that are like, okay, and now, like, as you go through it, I'm sure you've reset your tolerance and you have new measures that are saying like, okay, absolutely, this is my new tolerance, right? And now I'm only going to allow, if I see this, I'm going to make a change.
Right? Yes, absolutely. That's so as once I reached a certain point, that new point became, if I ever saw 240 on the scale, it was like, oh, yeah, we're going on the wrong slope. And so then I would obviously, that would be my new quote unquote governor.
Right.
For myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, we went deep into that one, but
no, it's all cool.
All important stuff.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. Point out, like, your point of view with structural things is people go to doctors, another badge of Kaiser on it right here, and they're like, "Oh, you just got to stop running. Just you're too old. Yeah. You're 35. Stop running."
And that's someone going.
And then they come in here and they're like, "I'm trying CrossFit because my doctor said I can't run anymore." And you're like,
yeah. Or
I just grab their hand and I'm like, you were in Operation Kaiser Freedom.
See you.
I got you.
There you go. Let's go.
And there are things where, I did years and years ago work with a woman who was getting ready to run a half marathon and she had plantar fasciitis. And so we corrected her running technique and had her run her way out of plantar fasciitis. Now that was a very concise program where she was only running with me and different things like that. But it was, it was definitely a chore to keep up with making sure that she was not doing things to damage it. But you can actually run your way out of that by fixing mechanics. And that's something that
these are the things.
You definitely have to stay focused, though. Don't just think, okay, I've got plantar fasciitis, I'm going to go run. No, that's not the right idea. So you got to fix things. Yeah, it's a tired work.
There's no more Band-Aids, right? Like, stop. The Band-Aid approach to health and wellness is gone now. Now we're going to fix shit. And that's what we're doing here on all levels.
Exactly.
Right? Like, one of my patients with mental health issues and around the gut health, got her on the B6s, the B12s, changed her food, new person. There was no brain surgery needed and we didn't have to lock her up.
That's
right. Like, it's just like what Tim does with bodies and we do with health and wellness. Like, remember, like, you have to be your own advocate with your doctors and specialists, and you have to know that you're in control of your health and how well your knee feels. And there's people like Tim and Ty and Lori and a bunch of all the coaches here and great people all around the country that are here to help you. So find them and fix the problem. Don't put a bandage over it.
Exactly, guys. That's all we have. I don't want to end it on anything else except that right there. And that's something that Coach Lori has been preaching for a long time, is that we are not about putting Band-Aids on symptoms. We're about targeting the causes of the problems.
Yeah.
She's been saying that since 2020. So I could attest because I was here. It's always been about trying to figure out the true cause and not just deal with the symptoms. But that said,
all right.
If you're not following us, you can follow Coach Lori at Coach Lori 925. Follow Coach Tim 925. Follow me, Coach Ty, Coach 925. Follow Amazing Gym at CrossFit SR 925 at CrossFit San Ramon. This is Keeping It Real with TNL Podcast. We'll see you guys on the next one. Keep it classy, San Ramon.
Thank you. Stay consistent.